The rumble of engines filled the small-town diner parking lot as a group of bikers pulled in, their leather jackets gleaming with club patches and steel studs that caught the sunlight. It was the kind of sound that made everyone turn to look, loud, bold, unapologetic. The leader of the group, a broad man named Hawk, swung off his Harley, his tattooed arms flexing as he removed his helmet. His friends followed, laughing, teasing one another as they made their way toward the diner entrance. Then they saw her. A teenage girl, probably 16 or 17, was sitting alone at a corner booth by the window. Her back was turned toward them, but what caught their attention wasn't her face, it was her jacket. It wasn't new or polished like theirs. It was faded, a little too big for her, and had a few scuffs on the sleeves. But stitched across the back, in bold white letters, was the word, Road Angels. The bikers exchanged glances. Road Angels, one of them snorted. Ain't that the group that disbanded years ago? Another laughed. Yeah, wasn't that the club full of old-timers who thought they were heroes or something? Hawk grinned, his deep voice carrying across the diner. Hey, sweetheart, he called out as they entered, you sure that jacket fits you? Looks a bit too heavy for a kid. A few chuckles followed. The girl didn't turn immediately. She took a slow sip of her milkshake and placed the cup down carefully before glancing over her shoulder. Her eyes were calm, almost tired, but there was something sharp in them, something that made the laughter fade for a moment. It fits just fine, she said softly, before turning back to her drink. The bikers took a booth across from her, still amused. Hawk signaled the waitress, ordering coffee and burgers. But as they talked, their eyes kept drifting back to the girl's jacket. There was something about the patch below the Road Angels name that they couldn't quite make out from where they sat. Hawk leaned back, his curiosity growing. Hey, kid, he said again. Where'd you get that jacket anyway? Thrift store. This time, she didn't respond. Instead, she reached into her backpack and pulled out a small leather-bound notebook, setting it beside her drink. On the cover, in fading ink, was written, For Dad. Hawk frowned. Something about that notebook, about the way she touched it, stirred something faint and uncomfortable in him. One of the younger bikers, Diesel, smirked. Probably just playin' dress up, boss. You know, wannabe biker stuff. Hawk grunted but said nothing. He'd seen wannabes before, but there was something off here. The jacket was too well worn, too real. The kind of wear that comes from years on the road, not from a thrift rack. Minutes passed, and the bikers continued joking among themselves. The girl finished her drink, stood up, and reached for her wallet. As she turned, the full back of the jacket came into view, and that's when they saw it. Under the name Road Angels was a smaller, older patch, hand-stitched with care. It read, In memory of Captain Jack, always ride safe. The diner fell silent. Hawk froze, his hand gripping his coffee cup midair. Captain Jack. The name hit him like a punch to the chest. He hadn't heard it in over 10 years. Captain Jack was a legend, not just to the Road Angels, but to anyone who'd spent time on the open road back then. A man known for helping stranded riders, fixing bikes for free, even standing up against rival clubs who bullied the weak. But 10 years ago, he died in an accident while saving another biker from a truck that lost control on the highway. Hawk had been there that night. He remembered the rain, the flashing red lights, the twisted metal. He remembered the man lying on the asphalt, Captain Jack, and the little girl crying beside him. A paramedic had to pull her away as they covered Jack's body. Hawk's heart sank. He looked at the girl again, the same age she would have been back then. Oh, hell, he whispered. Diesel frowned. What is it, boss? Hawk swallowed hard, his voice quieter now. That's Jack's kid. The table went silent. Every biker stared at the girl, who was now counting money for her bill. Hawk slowly stood up, walked toward her, and cleared his throat. You knew Captain Jack? He asked, his voice careful. The girl looked up, studying him for a long moment. He was my dad. The air in the diner felt heavy. Even the waitress stopped pouring coffee. Hawk nodded slowly, guilt flashing across his rough features. Your old man was one of the best, he said softly. Helped a lot of people. Including me. The girl's expression softened just a bit. I know who you are, she said quietly. Hawk, he told me about you. That hit him harder than he expected. She continued, her voice steady but filled with quiet emotion. He said you used to ride with him sometimes. Said you had a good heart but got lost along the way. Hawk's throat tightened. He didn't know what to say. Memories of Captain Jack teaching him how to fix an engine, laughing over cheap coffee at roadside diners, came flooding back. And then came the memory of how he'd drifted away from that life, chasing money, status, and a reputation that meant nothing now. The girl picked up her notebook, holding it close to her chest. I wear his jacket because it reminds me of what he stood for. He told me real bikers don't need to scare people or show off. They protect. They help. The silence around her was deafening. Hawk could feel the eyes of his crew burning into him, waiting for his reaction. He nodded slowly, his voice rough. He was right. Then, without another word, he reached down and unzipped his own leather jacket. The patch on his chest, the one that read, "Iron Wolves," seemed meaningless now. He ran his fingers over it for a moment, then looked back at her. "You keep wearing that, kid," he said finally. "You wear it proud." She smiled faintly, a small, grateful smile, and slipped out of the diner. The bell above the door jingled softly as she disappeared into the sunlight, climbing onto a small, worn-out bike that looked too old for her but clearly cared for. As she kicked it to life, the Road Angel's emblem caught the light, glimmering faintly before she rode away down the open road. For a long time, no one in the diner spoke. Finally, Diesel broke the silence. "That was really Captain Jack's daughter?" Hawk nodded. "Yeah, and that patch, that's not just decoration, it's a promise." He stared out the window, watching the girl's fading silhouette. "He died savin', a man who didn't deserve it," he murmured. "But he'd have done it again, 'cause that's who he was." The youngest biker shifted awkwardly. "Guess we made fools of ourselves." Hawk turned toward him, his voice low but firm. "We did worse. We forgot what riding used to mean." The group sat there quietly, the laughter gone, replaced by something heavier, respect, maybe even shame. Outside, the sound of her bike grew faint, blending into the hum of the highway. Hawk placed a few bills on the counter for his untouched coffee and stood up. "Let's ride," he said. "Where to?" Diesel asked. "Doesn't matter," Hawk replied. "But from now on, we ride the way Jack taught us." As they stepped out into the sunlight and revved their engines, a gust of wind carried the faint scent of asphalt and wildflowers. Hawk glanced once more down the road, half expecting to see that faded jacket glinting in the distance. He didn't, but somehow, he knew, wherever she was, Captain Jack's legacy still rode with her. And for the first time in years, Hawk felt proud to be a biker again.